The words hung in the air like poison. Your children are too much trouble, Rebecca. I can't have them here anymore. Mom stood in her pristine living room, arms crossed, her face set in that expression I knew too well. Behind her, my sister Caroline smirked from the leather couch, sipping wine like she was watching her favorite show. My twins, Emma and Jacob, were 7 years old. They just spilled juice on the white carpet. An accident, nothing more. But Mom treated it like they'd burned down her house. They're destructive.
Loud. Exhausting.
I'm 62 years old. I deserve peace in my own home. I held both kids' hands, feeling them squeeze tighter. Emma's eyes filled with tears. Jacob stared at the floor. Mom, they're children. They make mistakes. That's normal. Normal for undisciplined children, Caroline added, swirling her wine. My son Daniel would never behave that way. I wanted to scream. Daniel was 12 and spent every visit glued to his phone, ignoring everyone. But somehow, that made him the perfect grandchild. My active, curious twins were problems to be solved. From now on, Mom declared, don't bring them to family gatherings. You can come alone if you want. I drove home in silence, my hands gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. Emma cried softly in the back seat. Jacob kept asking why Grandma didn't like them anymore. I had no answers that wouldn't break their hearts further. My husband David met us at the door, taking one look at my face and pulling me into his arms. What happened? I explained everything while the twins went upstairs to their room. David's jaw tightened with each word. She banned our children from her house? Her own grandchildren? She said they're too much trouble. Caroline just sat there agreeing, talking about how perfect Daniel is. My voice cracked. David, they think our kids are problems. He held me tighter. Our children are wonderful. Active, yes. Energetic, absolutely. But they're kind, smart, and loving. Your mother's wrong. But knowing she was wrong didn't stop the pain. That night, I lay awake thinking about every time Mom had favored Caroline's family over mine. The expensive gifts for Daniel while my twins got gift cards. The bragging about Caroline's corporate job while dismissing my work as a special education teacher. What Mom didn't know was that 3 months ago, I'd received an unexpected call from Dad's estate attorney. Dad had passed away 2 years earlier, and I thought everything was settled. I was wrong. Ms. Rebecca, your father established a secondary trust that activates based on certain conditions. Those conditions have now been met. The attorney, Mr. Harrison, had explained that Dad created this trust specifically for his grandchildren's education. The amount was substantial, $800,000, divided equally among all his grandchildren. But there was a clause. A very specific clause that Dad had insisted on including. The funds are contingent on each grandchild maintaining a relationship with both parents and all grandparents for a minimum of 4 quarterly visits per year. If any grandparent willfully excludes a grandchild without legitimate cause, that grandparent forfeits their ability to influence the distribution. I hadn't thought much about it at the time. Why would I? We visited Mom regularly. But now, everything had changed. Now, Mom had just created a documented reason to trigger that clause. And she had no idea what was coming. The next week, Caroline called. Her voice dripped with false concern. Rebecca, I heard about what happened. Mom's just overwhelmed. You understand, right? Overwhelmed by 7-year-olds accidentally spilling juice. They're a lot to handle. You have to admit that. She paused. Daniel's just easier. He's calm, well-behaved. Maybe if you worked on discipline. I hung up. I couldn't listen to another word. My phone buzzed immediately with texts from her, but I ignored them all. Instead, I called Mr. Harrison. I need to discuss my father's trust. Specifically, the grandparent relationship clause. Of course. What's the situation? I explained everything. Mom's ban, the witnesses present, the exact words she'd used. Mr. Harrison was quiet for a long moment. This is precisely the scenario your father wanted to prevent. He was very clear that all grandchildren should be treated equally. Do you want to move forward with enforcement? My heart pounded. What would that mean? Your mother would receive formal notification that her actions have triggered the protective clause. She'd have 30 days to remedy the situation or face consequences regarding the trust distribution. I spent 3 days thinking about it. David supported whatever decision I made, but he was clear about his feelings. Your mom needs to understand that actions have consequences. She can't just exclude our children because they're not perfect little robots. Emma asked twice more why we weren't visiting Grandma. Jacob stopped mentioning her altogether, which somehow hurt worse. I watched my children absorb the rejection, saw it dim their natural brightness just a little. That's when I made my decision. Mr. Harrison, I want to proceed. The formal letter was delivered to Mom's house by courier on a Wednesday morning. I knew because Caroline called me within an hour, screaming. What did you do? Mom just received some legal letter about Dad's trust. She's having a breakdown. I didn't do anything. Dad's trust has specific requirements. Mom violated them. By not wanting her wild children destroying her house. By banning her grandchildren from family gatherings without legitimate cause. There's a difference. My voice stayed calm, which seemed to infuriate Caroline more. This is about money? You're doing this for money. This is about my children being treated with basic respect. Mom called that evening. Her voice shook with rage. How dare you? After everything I've done for you, this is how you repay me? Threatening legal action. I didn't threaten anything, Mom. Dad set up protections in his trust. You triggered them. Your father would be ashamed of you. The words stung, but I pushed through. Dad loved all his grandchildren equally. He made sure his trust reflected that. You're the one who decided Emma and Jacob weren't worth your time. They're destructive. They spilled juice.
Once.
They're 7 years old. I took a breath. You have 30 days to fix this. The letter explained everything. She hung up without another word. I sat on the couch, shaking. David wrapped his arms around me. You did the right thing. Then why do I feel awful? Because she's your mother. But Rebecca, our kids are watching how we handle this. They need to see us stand up for them. He was right. Emma and Jacob needed to know they were worth fighting for. That they weren't problems to be hidden away. That their parents would protect them, even from family. The next Sunday was supposed to be a family dinner. Mom hosted these monthly gatherings, and everyone was expected to attend. I hadn't received a cancellation notice, so I decided to go. Alone. David stayed home with the kids, and I drove to Mom's house with my stomach in knots. Caroline's car was already in the driveway. So was Uncle Tom's and Aunt Linda's. I walked in to find everyone gathered in the living room, their conversations stopping abruptly when they saw me. Mom stood by the fireplace, her face pale and tight. I didn't think you'd come. You didn't uninvite me. Caroline stood up, her expression sharp. This is unbelievable. You're really going to tear this family apart over spilled juice. I'm not tearing anything apart. I'm asking for my children to be treated fairly. I looked around the room. Did Mom tell you all what happened? Or just a version? Aunt Linda spoke carefully. We heard that your children were being disruptive and your mother asked for some space. My mother banned my children from this house and all family gatherings.
Permanently.
Because they accidentally spilled juice on the carpet. The room went silent. Uncle Tom frowned, looking at Mom. You banned them permanently? And that seems extreme. They're constantly causing problems, Mom insisted. Every visit, something gets broken or stained. I can't relax in my own home. They're 7, I said quietly. They're learning. They make mistakes. But they're also kind, funny, and desperate for your approval. And you threw them away. Caroline jumped in. Don't be dramatic. Mom just needs boundaries. Boundaries are, please don't jump on the furniture. Banishment isn't a boundary. It's rejection. I turned to Mom. Dad's trust protects against exactly this kind of favoritism. He saw how you always preferred Caroline's family. He wanted to make sure all his grandchildren were treated equally. Mom's face flushed red. Your father left that money for education, not for manipulation. The money goes to education regardless. But the terms of distribution can change if grandparents show clear favoritism. Dad made sure of it. I pulled out my phone, showing them the relevant section of the trust document that Mr. Harrison had sent me. It's all here, written in Dad's own words. Aunt Linda read the document, her eyes widening. And did you know about this clause? Mom sank into her chair, suddenly looking older. Harold mentioned something about treating all the grandchildren fairly. I didn't think he meant this.
He meant exactly this, I said.
He watched you favor Caroline's family for years. The expensive gifts for Daniel. The bragging. The way you dismissed my career while praising Caroline's. He saw all of it. Uncle Tom looked uncomfortable. I didn't notice that Daniel seemed to get more attention. Because Daniel is well-behaved. Caroline shouted. Because my family doesn't cause constant drama. Your son spends every visit on his phone, ignoring everyone, I countered. But that's fine because he's quiet. My children actually want to interact, to play, to be part of this family. But that's too much trouble. Mom's hands trembled. I never meant to hurt them. But you did. You looked at my babies and decided they weren't worth the effort. And now you're facing the consequences Dad knew might come. The dinner was tense and brief. Aunt Linda tried to mediate, suggesting that maybe everyone had overreacted. Uncle Tom stayed quiet, clearly uncomfortable with family conflict. Caroline left early, slamming the door behind her. I stayed until the end, helping clean up despite the awkward silence. As I was leaving, Mom stopped me at the door. What do you want from me, Rebecca? I want you to apologize to Emma and Jacob. I want you to treat them with the same love and patience you show Daniel. I want them to feel welcome in their grandmother's home. And if I don't, you'll take away their inheritance. The trust determines that, not me. Dad's attorneys manage it according to his wishes. I met her eyes. But honestly, Mom, the money isn't what matters most. What matters is that my children know they're valued. That they don't grow up thinking they're too much trouble for their own grandmother. She didn't respond, and I left feeling exhausted. David was waiting up, the kids long asleep. How bad was it? Pretty bad. But I said what needed saying. 3 days later, Mr. Harrison called with an update. Your mother's attorney contacted us. They're requesting a meeting to discuss the trust terms and explore options for compliance. She hired an attorney. It appears so. They want to understand the exact requirements for maintaining full distribution rights.
He paused.
Ms. Rebecca, I should tell you that your father anticipated this scenario. He left additional documentation explaining his reasoning. Would you like me to share that with your mother's counsel? What kind of documentation? Letters. Journal entries. Your father kept detailed records of family interactions over the years. He documented instances of favoritism, noting dates and specific incidents. He wanted to ensure that if this clause was ever challenged, there would be clear evidence of why he included it. My throat tightened. Dad had seen everything. He'd watched Mom hurt me and my children, and he'd planned for this moment.
Yes.
Share everything with her attorney. Mom needs to understand this isn't about me being vindictive. This is about Dad's final wishes. That evening, I finally told Emma and Jacob what was happening. Age-appropriate version, of course. Grandma made a mistake. She said some hurtful things. But we're working on fixing it. Emma looked up at me with those big, serious eyes. Does Grandma not love us anymore? My heart cracked. Grandma loves you. But sometimes grown-ups make bad choices when they're frustrated. What she said wasn't okay, and we're making sure she understands that. Did we do something really bad? Jacob asked quietly.
No, baby.
You spilled juice by accident. That's not bad. That's just being a kid. I pulled them both close. You are not too much. You are not problems. You are wonderful exactly as you are. They seemed satisfied with that explanation, or at least willing to accept it. But I could see the hurt lingering in their eyes. Children internalize rejection faster than we realize. Mom's words had planted seeds of doubt that would take time to uproot. David found me crying in the bathroom later. She damaged them, I whispered. I can see it. They're questioning themselves now. Then we'll spend every day showing them the truth. That they're loved, valued, and enough. He wiped my tears. And maybe your mom will learn that too. I wanted to believe that. But part of me wondered if Mom was too set in her ways to change. The meeting with attorneys happened the following week. Mr. Harrison represented the trust. Mom brought her own lawyer, a stern woman named Ms. Chen. Caroline attended too, looking furious. I was there as Emma and Jacob's parent and trust beneficiary. We met in Mr. Harrison's conference room, the tension thick enough to cut. Ms. Chen spoke first. My client believes the trust relationship clause is overly restrictive and potentially unenforceable. A grandparent should have the right to set boundaries in their own home. Mr. Harrison responded calmly. The trust doesn't prevent boundaries. It prevents complete exclusion of grandchildren from family gatherings without legitimate cause. There's a significant difference. My mother asked for reasonable space, Caroline interjected. That's her right. Your mother permanently banned 2 children from her home and all family events because they spilled juice, I said flatly. That's not a boundary. That's discrimination. Ms. Chen shuffled her papers. The trust language is vague. What constitutes legitimate cause? Mr. Harrison pulled out a folder. Mr. Harold Morrison addressed that specifically. He defined legitimate causes as safety concerns, genuine behavioral issues requiring professional intervention, or documented patterns of destructive behavior. Childhood accidents don't qualify. Furthermore, Mr. Harrison continued, opening the folder. Mr. Morrison left extensive documentation supporting his decision to include this clause. I have permission from the trust to share these materials. He spread out several papers. Letters in Dad's handwriting. Journal entries. Even printed emails. My eyes filled with tears as I recognized his careful script. Mom's face went pale as she saw them. Mr. Harrison read from one letter. I've watched and favor Caroline's family for years. Daniel receives lavish gifts while Emma and Jacob get token presents. Caroline's accomplishments are celebrated while Rebecca's meaningful work is dismissed. I won't allow this favoritism to extend to their inheritance. All my grandchildren deserve equal treatment and equal love. The room fell silent. Mom stared at the table, her hands trembling. Caroline looked shocked, her confidence cracking. Mr. Harrison continued reading excerpts, each one documenting specific instances of favoritism. Birthday parties where Daniel got expensive toys while the twins received books. Family dinners where Mom bragged about Daniel's grades but never mentioned Emma's art awards or Jacob's reading achievements. Dad kept records? Caroline whispered. Of all of this? Your father loved all of you, Mr. Harrison said gently. But he believed in fairness. These records weren't meant to shame anyone. They were meant to protect his grandchildren from unequal treatment. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely audible. I didn't realize I was doing that. I thought, Daniel's just easier. Less demanding. Daniel's older, I said. And yes, he's quiet. But Emma and Jacob are 7. They're supposed to be energetic and curious. That's healthy. Ms. Chen cleared her throat. What are the specific requirements for compliance with the trust terms? Mr. Harrison outlined them clearly. Mrs. Morrison must reinstate full access for Emma and Jacob to family gatherings. She must demonstrate consistent, equal treatment of all grandchildren over a 6-month evaluation period. This includes similar gift-giving, equal attention and praise, and no exclusion from family events. And if she complies? Ms. Chen asked. The trust distributions continue as originally planned. All grandchildren receive equal educational funds. And if she doesn't? The trust administrators have discretion to adjust distributions to ensure excluded grandchildren aren't penalized for their grandparents' choices. Mr. Harrison looked at Mom. Mrs. Morrison, your husband didn't want to punish you. He wanted to protect all his grandchildren. This is your opportunity to honor his wishes. Mom's tears fell silently. I felt a complicated mix of vindication and sadness watching her absorb the truth about Dad's observations. After the attorneys left, Mom, Caroline, and I sat alone in the conference room. The silence stretched uncomfortably until Mom spoke. I need to apologize to Emma and Jacob. Yes, I agreed. You do. I don't know how to fix this, Rebecca.
I didn't see what I was doing.
Harold saw it, you saw it, but I was blind. She wiped her eyes. I told myself Daniel was easier because he's older, more mature. But the truth is, I related to him better. He's quiet like I am. Your children are more like you were as a kid. Always moving, always asking questions. And I struggled with you too. The admission hung in the air. Caroline looked uncomfortable, probably realizing for the first time that her childhood had come at my expense. Mom, I didn't know you treated Rebecca differently. You didn't notice because you benefited from it, I said, not unkindly. That's how favoritism works. The favorite rarely sees it. Mom nodded slowly. Your father tried to tell me years ago. He said I was harder on you, more critical. I dismissed it. Told him he was imagining things. But he wasn't. What happens now? Caroline asked quietly. Mom apologizes to Emma and Jacob, I said. She explains that she made a mistake and wants to fix it. Then she follows through. Consistent visits, equal treatment, genuine interest in their lives. And the trust, Mom asked, follows Dad's terms. If you comply with the requirements, everything proceeds as planned. If you don't, the administrators adjust accordingly. I looked at her directly. But Mom, this isn't really about the money. It's about my children knowing they matter to you. Mom covered her face with her hands, sobbing. I ruined everything. You made a mistake, I corrected. A big one. But mistakes can be fixed if you're willing to do the work. Caroline reached over, touching Mom's arm. For the first time, I saw genuine emotion on my sister's face. Not smugness or superiority, but concern. Mom, I think I contributed to this too. I always felt like the successful daughter, and I maybe reinforced that. I'm sorry, Rebecca. The apology surprised me. Caroline and I had never been close, locked in an unspoken competition that she'd been winning for years. Thank you, I said carefully. Daniel needs to see his cousins more too, Caroline continued. He should know Emma and Jacob better. I kept him separate because it was easier. That was wrong. That weekend, Mom came to our house. She brought flowers, a proper apology, and visible nervousness. Emma and Jacob hung back when they saw her, uncertain. David and I had prepared them, explaining that Grandma wanted to talk. Mom knelt down to their level, her eyes already wet. Emma, Jacob, I need to say I'm sorry. I said something very hurtful to you and your mom. I told you that you were too much trouble, and that was wrong. You're not too much trouble. You're wonderful children, and I was having a bad day and made a terrible mistake. Emma studied her seriously. We didn't mean to spill the juice. I know, sweetheart. Accidents happen. I should have helped you clean it up, not gotten angry. Mom's voice cracked. Your grandpa loved you so much. He would be very disappointed in how I treated you. I want to do better. Jacob moved closer. Can we visit you again? I hope so. If you'll give Grandma another chance. She looked up at me, then back at them. And I promise to do better. To be the grandma you deserve. Emma glanced at me. I nodded slightly, giving her permission to make her own choice. She stepped forward, giving Mom a cautious hug. Jacob followed. Mom held them both, crying quietly. Over the next few weeks, Mom made genuine efforts. She called regularly, asking about Emma's art projects and Jacob's reading. She invited us for Sunday dinner, child-proofing her house beforehand. She bought washable carpet cleaner and put away her most fragile decorations. Small changes, but meaningful ones. The first visit back was awkward. Emma and Jacob were hesitant, watching Mom carefully for signs of rejection. But she was patient, getting down on the floor to play with them, praising their creativity when they built elaborate block towers. When Jacob accidentally knocked over a plant, she simply smiled and said, "Let's clean that up together." Caroline brought Daniel, and for the first time, the cousins actually played together. Daniel showed them games on his tablet, and Emma taught him to draw horses. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Mom pulled me aside while the kids played. "Thank you for giving me this chance. I don't deserve it. You're their grandmother. They want to love you. They just need to feel safe doing it." I paused. Dad would be proud of you for trying. She nodded, more tears falling. I miss him so much. He kept me balanced, pointed out when I was being unfair. Without him, I lost my way. 3 months into the evaluation period, Mr. Harrison requested an update meeting. I documented everything carefully: visit frequency, gift equity, emotional support. Mom had been consistent, showing genuine effort. She'd attended Emma's art show and Jacob's school reading celebration. She'd sent equal birthday gifts to all 3 grandchildren. She'd even started therapy to work through why she'd favored Caroline's family. Your mother is in full compliance, Mr. Harrison confirmed after reviewing my documentation. The trust administrators are satisfied with the changes. Assuming this continues, the distributions will proceed as originally planned. Relief washed over me. Not because of the money, though that would secure my children's education, but because it meant Mom was truly changing. That my children would have the grandmother relationship they deserved. That evening, I called Mom to share the news. Mr. Harrison says you're doing everything right. She exhaled shakily. I want to keep doing everything right. Not because of the trust, Rebecca. Because I see now what I was doing to all of you. And I'm ashamed. Shame isn't useful, I said gently. Growth is. Keep growing. Your father was a wise man. I wish I'd listened to him sooner.
She paused.
Will you forgive me? The question hung in the air. Forgiveness felt complicated, layered. She'd hurt my children, dismissed me for years, favored my sister consistently. But she was also trying genuinely to change. I'm working toward it, I said honestly. Ask me again in 6 months. 6 months later, the change in our family was remarkable. Mom had maintained her efforts, never slipping back into old patterns. Emma and Jacob looked forward to visiting her. They showed her their school projects, told her about their friends, asked her to read them stories. She engaged fully, present in ways she'd never been before. Caroline and I had developed a tentative friendship. We'd never be extremely close, but we were learning to appreciate each other's differences. She'd started asking my advice about parenting, admitting that Daniel's phone addiction concerned her. I'd suggested family activities that didn't involve screens, sharing strategies I used with my twins. At Sunday dinner, I watched Mom sitting on the floor with all 3 grandchildren, playing a board game. She laughed when Emma landed on her space, groaned dramatically when Jacob beat her. Daniel smiled more than I'd ever seen, actually engaged instead of isolated behind a screen. David squeezed my hand. You did this. You stood up for our kids and changed everything. Dad did this. I corrected. He saw the problem and created a solution. I just followed through. He knew you would. That's why he trusted you with this. David kissed my forehead. You're a remarkable mother, Rebecca. Emma and Jacob are lucky to have you. The trust distributions were finalized when the evaluation period ended successfully. Each grandchild received equal educational funds, managed by trustees until they reached college age. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was watching Emma show Mom her latest painting without fear of criticism. It was hearing Jacob excitedly tell Grandma about the book series he was reading. It was seeing Mom beam with genuine pride at their accomplishments. One evening, Mom pulled out a box of photos. Pictures of me as a child, energetic and curious, always moving. You are so much like Emma, she said softly. Always creating, imagining, questioning. I didn't know how to handle that. My mother was strict, critical. I learned that quiet, obedient children were good children. Children who made noise were problems. I looked through the photos, seeing my younger self through new eyes. I wasn't a problem.
No.
You were vibrant and alive. I tried to dim that light because I didn't understand it. She touched one photo gently. I won't make that mistake with your children. They deserve to shine exactly as they are. We sat together, looking through memories, reframing the past with new understanding. Healing, I realized, wasn't a destination. It was a process, ongoing and imperfect. A year after Mom's initial ban, we celebrated Emma and Jacob's 8th birthday at her house. The party was loud, chaotic, and wonderful. Kids ran everywhere, Games got messy. Cake ended up on surfaces it shouldn't have. Mom smiled through all of it, helping clean up spills without complaint, organizing activities, making sure every child felt included. Caroline helped too, chasing giggling children through the backyard, her designer clothes forgotten. Daniel played with his younger cousins without being asked, finally part of the family instead of apart from it. Uncle Tom manned the grill, while Aunt Linda coordinated the treasure hunt. Watching my family come together, truly together, I felt Dad's presence strongly. He'd orchestrated this transformation from beyond the grave, using the one tool that commanded attention: money. But the money itself wasn't the point. It never had been. The point was forcing everyone to examine their behavior, to confront uncomfortable truths, to choose change. As Emma blew out her candles, surrounded by family who genuinely celebrated her, I whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for seeing what others missed, for protecting his grandchildren, for believing I'd have the courage to enforce his wishes, for loving us enough to create consequences." That evening, after guests left and my exhausted children slept in the car, Mom walked me out. She handed me an envelope. "Don't open this until you get home." Inside, I later found a letter in her handwriting. It read, "Rebecca, I spent years making you feel less than your sister. I criticized your career, dismissed your choices, and treated your children as inconveniences. I can't undo that damage, but I can spend the rest of my life making sure Emma and Jacob know their worth. Your father saw my failures clearly. I'm grateful he loved you all enough to address them. Thank you for giving me the chance to be better. You're the daughter I should have celebrated all along. I'm proud of you. Love, Mom." I cried reading it, David holding me close. The words I'd waited decades to hear, finally spoken. Not because I demanded them, but because she'd grown enough to offer them freely. That made them more meaningful than any forced apology could have been. "Your kids will grow up knowing they're loved unconditionally," David said. "That's what matters most." He was right. Emma and Jacob would never doubt their worth. They'd never feel like problems or inconveniences. They'd know that their parents fought for them, that their grandfather protected them, and that their grandmother learned to love them properly. 2 years later, I stood in Mr. Harrison's office for the final trust meeting. All requirements had been exceeded. Mom had maintained consistent, equal treatment of all grandchildren. The educational funds were secure, growing with careful investment. Emma, Jacob, and Daniel would all have their college expenses covered completely. But beyond the financial security, our family had transformed. Mom and I talked regularly, genuinely. She attended every school event, art show, and reading celebration. She sent encouraging texts, asked thoughtful questions, and showed real interest in my children's lives. Caroline and I had coffee monthly, our relationship evolving into something resembling actual sisterhood. "Your father would be pleased," Mr. Harrison said, closing the final files. This is exactly what he hoped would happen. I thought about Dad often, wishing he could see the changes. But maybe he had seen them somehow. Maybe he'd known that forcing us to confront difficult truths would ultimately heal us. That protecting his grandchildren would protect all of us. Driving home, I called Mom. "Want to come for dinner this week? The kids want to show you their science projects." "I'd love that," she said warmly. "I'm proud of them, Rebecca. And I'm proud of you." The words still brought tears, but now they were tears of gratitude rather than pain. We'd walked through fire and emerged stronger. My children would never know what it felt like to be too much trouble. They'd only know unconditional love. And that, more than any trust fund, was the real inheritance Dad had given us all.